this afternoon's work session. I'm going to ask everybody to please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, we have a couple of items today in front of us, the first of which is an update on the town-wide LED light project. Here to present from our consultant, Wendel, is Keith Krug and Catherine Eckham. Did I get that right? All right, good. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Keith and Catherine.
Thank you, Supervisor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, you got to use the mic, otherwise we can't record.
Yeah, that works.
How's that?
Perfect.
Oh, thank you for having us in today. We did have a kickoff meeting with the town's project team, and they asked that we come in and give this, high-level introductory slide presentation today. Bear in mind that we'll be back soon, within the next month or so, Jackie, correct? To go over more of the financial details. But today is a high-level overview of really how we got here and how these programs work and what the advantages are to the town. So with that, I'll cover a few topics of history in our relationship with the town on this particular topic of converting your streetlights to LED technology. It was legislation in the state of New York in 2015 that allows this to occur. So the governor signed this legislation that requires all the New York State public utilities to respond to inquiries for the purchase and ownership of street lighting assets by municipalities as it means to reduce operating costs in the municipalities across New York State. We identified this opportunity and worked with your engineering department. Mike Delamere put together a study in 2016 which took advantage of a New York State Energy Research and Development Authority grant to cover half the cost of that study. And the purpose of this study was to look at the current GIS information that the town already had, spot check additional attributes about the existing streetlights, and put together economics at the time to look at the feasibility of undertaking this opportunity. In the same year, Wendel was the company that first received approval from the New York State Public Service Commission to advance projects through this transition. So we're proud of that. And we've also achieved, in the last year or two, the first projects in National Grid territory, which is obviously specific to you since 99% of your streetlights are in National Grid. In 2019, the town issued a competitive solicitation for an energy performance contract, which I'll get into very briefly what that means. And through that interview process, Wendel was selected, and we're currently working on what's called an energy savings performance contract comprehensive energy audit. So it's an update of all the economics associated with doing this program. Any questions? So what is an energy performance contract? An energy performance contract is a financial mechanism to implement capital improvement projects where you're repurposing money currently in your operating budget to offset the cost of the project. And usually those projects are bonded or through a municipal lease over anywhere from a 10 to 20-year term, and the savings are guaranteed by that company to offset the cost of that loan payment. So in column number 1, you're currently paying National Grid for energy and operational costs, which includes the maintenance, leasing of equipment, or as they call a facilities charge, as well as the energy associated with the inefficient lighting systems. And through this project, we're going to reduce those costs and then repurpose that money to offset the cost of the project they're in financing and have a net positive cash flow, meaning that the annual savings in your operating budget will be greater than the money you borrow to do the project. And once the financing period is over, the town enjoys that surplus in your operating budget for the remaining useful life of the equipment. What also is unique about energy performance contract in New York State is it is an option for design build. It's one of the only options available to municipalities. So you, through your competitive solicitation, you selected Wendel to be your design builder. So we're doing the audit, then we'll do design, and then we'll get pricing from contractors to install it, and then come back with a build contract. This is basically what I was describing right here. There's 4 basic steps to these projects. We're in the audit phase right now. we'll be going out, Katie and our team will be going out and doing a GIS audit of any unidentified attributes of the systems in the field right now. We'll update the economics again. We work collaboratively with your project team, engineering, highways, et cetera, members of the town board through design to make selections for equipment. We'll get competitive pricing, bring that back to you, we review that together, and then we go into implementation, and then you achieve the results. So in our energy performance contracting model, we try to pull in the attributes that leverage the best of design build and the best of design bid build. So what's unique about us is that we do all of our work with 100% transparency. So our fees, all the subcontracted costs, et cetera, are all 100% transparent. And we do it in the steps that I had on the previous slide so that it's interactive. And your team is involved in every step along the way. A little bit about Wendel. I don't think I need to read you that slide, but we do energy performance contracting in about 5 different states. We're nationally accredited by the Association of Energy Services Companies, which is a 3-year accreditation program. They independently review projects for performance to maintain that, and we're approved by the U.S. Department of Energy to do energy performance contracts. This is just really a sampling of projects that we have. We have about 46 projects across New York State of this nature focused on LED street lighting conversions. This top part here is the majority of our projects right here in Western New York. So I'm sure many of the cities, towns, and villages are familiar. And now we'll get into a couple of the benefits, and then we'll close a little bit about the economics. And obviously we'll take questions. So I'll turn it over to Katie.
Just this one? Yes. Okay. All right, I'm just going to go over some of the benefits of LED lighting. First of all, it's improved lighting quality. You can see by the top picture that's a non-LED, so that's your standard HID. And then on the bottom is a LED highway. You can see that there's a lot more consistency in lighting. You're not going in and out, which increases safety for drivers as well as pedestrians trying to cross any roads. So that's the public safety enhancements that you'll see. Also environmental benefits. LEDs obviously reduce the amount of carbon output, and so they have less energy consumption. This is better for the environment. Another one is minimizing light pollution. Again, I'm going to have you look at the top photo. You can see there's a lot of light escaping from the top and back of the fixtures themselves, while at the bottom the light is much more contained and focused onto the area where you want the light. So that's going to help residentially with homeowners who have their houses kind of close to the road. They'll have a lot less light escaping into their houses, so less complaints as well. Another one is it's a platform for smart cities technologies. LEDs is future-proofing, so you're getting ready for the future. So even if you aren't quite ready for smart city technology yet, you can be ready for when it does come out and you are ready to install. So this is just some quotes, just so you can see some maintenance and cost references. The typical failure rate is less than 1% over the lifespan of LEDs, so they last a lot longer, which reduces maintenance and also reduces energy costs as well. Do you want to go over these?
Yep. Thanks. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 main topics that we're very often asked by municipalities as you embark on such a program. The first is this ownership and maintenance piece. Obviously, most municipalities are afraid of taking on more assets, and how do they maintain them? If anything, most municipalities are looking to do the opposite, trying to do more with less, reduce some of that burden on their staff. But the case of street lighting is very unique in that this program can be set up where it automatically identifies a failure and automatically sends out a work order to a third-party contractor. And that's how many of our projects are going. So even though you're owning this asset, as you'll see in an upcoming slide, the savings are so significant that even when you budget for an outside contractor and asset management software, if you will, that allows for this automatic notification to a third-party electrical contractor, that it still nets out cash flow positive, and this can be done almost as seamlessly to the town as you desire. Some municipalities are asking to be copied with that notice. Some are asking to then, send the purchase order, if you will, to a third party, but many are trying to make it seamless. And we'll help you put that in your budget and we'll help you solicit and select a company that can be under a term agreement with negotiated unit pricing to do that maintenance. As an example, the town of Greece purchased their street lighting about 6 years ago. So they're an example of a good-sized municipality who've already been doing this for quite a while. And we're currently doing LED retrofits with the town of Greece, and they're one of our clients where we've been collecting a lot of data about, post-installation failures, post-installation maintenance costs, and how to set those programs up. So we've got some firsthand experience. One of the second questions we receive is very often, the shading of the color of the light. Very often people associate LEDs with that, very cool white or BMW headlight, color, which is not, very aesthetically pleasing. Well, as LEDs have matured in the roadway and street lighting field, they've also reduced the Kelvin temperature, meaning it's a softer light, more yellow. And it's very similar to some of the street lighting you have now. So the street lighting projects that we've been doing for the last few years are all in the 3,000 Kelvin range, and it's much more aesthetically pleasing. And the town of Lancaster, for example, will be going into construction soon, which would be good because it's a nearby municipality that you can go look at, as we're in the process of design. And then last, kind of clarifying what you're actually buying.
So these are all examples of fixtures that the town of Amherst currently has. You can see in the box there's just some quantities for you to see. So on the very left are your post tops. So in this buyback agreement, you would be purchasing the entire fixture as well as the pole, as well as in the right-hand picture with the metal cobra head, you would also be purchasing all of the pole as well as the teardrop. And you can see on the right is a cobra head on a utility wooden pole. So that would not be included in the buyback. That pole would not be. So that would remain in the custody of the utility. So if anything were to happen to any of the wooden poles, the utility would still be in charge of replacing and fixing it. So the only thing that you would be purchasing would be that part circled in the red. That would be the arm, wiring, and fixture head. So these are just some numbers for you to look at. So the town of Amherst is currently paying about $3.4 million in street lighting. Now that includes both energy charges, so the energy, the kilowatt hours, and the rate that the tariff says for that, as well as facility charges. That facility charge includes the maintenance. So that is what you're paying the utilities to maintain these fixtures. So you can see the facility charges makes up about 81%. And that would be what you would be taking over after the purchase. So on the right, the total annual savings would be about $2.5 million. So you can see that that savings would be about 74% of the original cost of that $3.4 million. So the proposed would only be 26% of the original. See a little asterisk is that we also include in that cost that we're proposing maintenance costs. So we don't just say you're saving this much, here you go. We also include the fact that you will be maintaining these fixtures. So we create a budget of sorts for you to put money aside and add into that for facility repairs or for knockdowns.
So this is a snapshot of what the economics look like right now based on a draft comprehensive energy audit and the information that we've collected so far. So the total cost of the project is around $25 million. The current purchase cost quote from National Grid is $15 million. So the difference is the estimated material and labor. And as Katie indicated, that includes a maintenance fund and an asset renewal fund. So we're going to be going out soon and looking at every single light and looking at the condition. But we've already factored in some asset renewal in case we do happen to find a street light that has a cracked base or maybe some broken wire. We've got a line item in there right now to accomplish that. Estimated with a $3 million first year savings, an 8 to 9 year payback, which is pretty typical for these projects and what makes them very attractive to municipalities because the expected useful life of LEDs is 20 to 25 years. We've modeled this at this point in time with a 20-year financing term. Obviously, as we go through the design, we're modifying that. We're looking at interest rates. We're looking at grants and incentives. We do know that there are grants and incentives available from the utilities to help offset the cost of this. And this is the annual cash flow. So in this blue bar is your debt service and your maintenance. And that escalation that you see there is actually an increasing maintenance fund. So all higher quality fixtures, which we've budgeted in this project to this point, are a 10-year warranty. Obviously, after the 10-year warranty timeline, we start to escalate that a little bit more just to make sure it's a healthy account. So the blue is the sum of all your costs going forward. The green are the sum of your savings. And as Katie indicated, that's both energy and this facilities charge is maintenance charge. And the difference is your net annual positive cash flow. So even in year one, as soon as construction's complete and you're paying this mortgage, if you will, on the project, you're netting out ahead. I threw this in. This is, some people like to see an actual before and after bill. I know it's a much smaller municipality, but I threw it in here because I had the slide available. But it goes to show the savings on these projects are, 60 to 80%, depending on the makeup of the inventory. And these are our next steps going forward. Basically, a repeat slide that I had before. And we'd love to answer any questions you have.
Sure. Mike, can you come up to the mic too? And Linda, you may as well head down also.
Tonight,
I want to make sure that,
to focus
got it.
on
I'm not
finances.
going into detailed finances, but we're talking about a $25 million project, so we got to make sure we're all comfortable moving forward. And I'm guessing that this is the first time some of the board members have gotten this much detail on the project. So.
Right, which is why I asked them to break it into 2 presentations.
So first, the valuation, the numbers that you've got, data sets that you have, those came from us in-house?
The inventory of both in-house from you and the auditing that we did back in 2016.
Correct, yep.
Darlene, we're comfortable with their auditing to date numbers was? Okay. I got it.
It's not finished, the current
Jackie,
audit.
I just want to make sure we're looking at a big picture of $25 million borrowing versus an assumed savings. So I just want to make sure we have a game plan. Can you go back to your next steps? Okay. So in that, some point, right, before we get into financing, I'm going to want to make sure that our base metrics are correct. And we're going to want to beat that up in-house with our finance department. Do you have a timetable for how long it's going to actually take to change out?
The change out will be considerably quicker than it will be getting the purchase agreement with National Grid. The design and all these other stages could be happening while we're trying to negotiate the sale or the purchase of the National Grid lights, which we expect that to be 8 to 9 months to get an agreement with National Grid.
So you have concurrent operations happening.
Correct, yes. We would be still proceeding with the other steps, the design steps and the looking at contractors, developing specs and
Ultimately
choose.
heading to a 21 borrowing.
But depends how you're going to finance it. If you're going to finance it with 100% bonding, we would need to have some upfront money. But I think it's $3 or $4 million for the design phase of it to get that part of it going while we're still waiting for making the purchase. Once we purchase the lights at the end of the 8 or 9 months, get an agreement through the Public Service Commission and everything, at that point we take over the lights. We reduce our billing from National Grid by we reduce down to 20% of what we're paying now. So right away we have a cost income or savings that could start to offset the cost of the borrowing.
I just want to make sure that if we're borrowing, we're not going to end up in a scenario where we borrow for design and then we have to basically sit on our hands for a full year after and then come back and borrow for.
We're already starting. First, we need this audit. We need to complete the audit that we can approach National Grid and say, here's what we say you have or we are paying for. Now we start negotiations with National Grid. So that whole process will be back and forth while we're doing the other steps.
So realistically, we're looking at starting a $3 to $4 million design effort in January 21. We don't have a capital project on our books this year. Okay.
No. So it'd have to start in 21.
So we're talking about starting a design project in 21 and then hoping to start the conversion either in '22.
It'll happen, it could happen in '21. Once this gets rolling, the
So,
construction
like,
phases
all
will be
I'm saying
pretty
is
quick.
that as we prepare our CIP for '21, we're going to have the macro number, right? Because we would have to do an upfront borrowing. We can't segment it for design and then, okay.
Right, yeah.
Well, we've been looking at different ways of doing it. Linda's been exploring different options, but we need some certain information before we can figure out the next steps.
It's still we do have to commit some funds, though, to do design work, so. That's why we're doing it in steps here with you guys today and future meetings, is to get to the audit complete and get the documentation in front of us, the data, that we can realistically approach this. That
So-
also includes $15 million to purchase the lighting system, and there's nobody in the committee that feels it's going to cost us $15 million. But by the Public Service Commission, it's a non-negotiable item with National Grid.
15
Unless
or
we can,
15?
unless we can come up with
15.
reasons.
The 15 acquisitions embedded in the 25 total expenditure. Okay.
25.
The purchase price is the big nut here that we got to crack to get the,
Tonight, we're looking for an approval for my signature on the NISEG, which is Transit Road Corridor.
that's just the 51 light fixtures on Transit Road.
But when you reference in there 1.6 million per year savings, that's cumulative townwide impact?
That's townwide, yes, yes, yes.
I had that question come
Yeah,
up to you prior.
that-
I was rather surprised the other day to discover that we had 51 lights with,
I
that
said-
weren't.
Right, it's a very small part of the town, it's just Transit Road.
They service the corridor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of so you referenced the need to audit physical inventory, see what's out there. One of the items that has come up as we're walking down the road of having a small cell wireless approval process nailed down soon is the application of small cell affixed to poles, including town poles. Although they seem to have height minimums or like a minimum threshold of 20 to 22 feet, is the town going to be have the capacity, like any of the other providers or pole owners, to be able to lease space on our poles?
That's a potential.
Okay.
So we have about 35 different attributes that we collect for each light fixture in the field. We bring that information back in a GIS application. We'd meet with the town, go over their desires or considerations for asset management, smart city technologies, cellular opportunities for revenue enhancement, if you will, by leasing out those assets, and we'll review all those options as part of the design phase.
And Stan, that we have a preference, obviously, if we were going to own metal poles for them to affix to those locations.
Right. And what we're having is the head of the light fixture itself becomes an automatic install for the antenna. They have
There's a node on top of the light that the node will be on the fixtures even when we first buy them, but down the road when you want to go to other technologies, it's just a matter of changing out that node.
Part of this process contemplate what a town lease agreement would look like for somebody to co-locate on one of our poles now that we're going to
We would
become
have the
owners?
opportunity.
Okay.
Certainly, we would, yeah.
I'd want that folded in, so that once we
That's been
go
discussed,
through an
yeah.
acquisition, we're not delayed trying to lease that space.
That's been part of the discussion from day one since
Yeah.
I've been.
I'm just looking for draft lease language, so, and I don't know I think that's probably coming from an attorney, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the smart pole technology that Councilmember Berger's referenced before is something that we're looking for ultimately in replacement scenarios.
Correct, yeah. It's not in the purchase price that what we're building, but it's an add-on that you could put on later with no difficulty. Nothing would become obsolete and have to be replaced. It would be an add-on that you just replace the node that's there and put a different node on
And
there.
as you're costing, as you're going through your physical audit, you're making recommendations about what fixtures or what poles would need to be replaced. Can you make a recommendation for a replacing kind and then a replace with a smart pole?
Yes,
As sort of a
yes.
cost spread? Okay,
We could do that as part of that effort.
that would be good. Any other questions at this time from the board?
I do.
Sure, Councilmember.
Thank you, Supervisor Culpa. Again, I'd like a clarification because I did notice on the resolution 179, and I asked the supervisor about it before our work session. And in that resolution, it says that following the purchase of all National Grid and NICEX streetlights, the estimated savings to the town will be in excess of $1.6 million per year, which is what Supervisor Culpa just mentioned. But that would be, you're saying in this resolution, a town-wide savings, not a savings from this project on Transit Road.
No, we're talking about our project is called the townwide lighting system.
Yeah.
The 51 fixtures again on Transit are just a small part of it.
They're part of
That's referring to the townwide lighting program.
Okay. But that being said, with the presentation, which actually, if you would be able to get us handouts of your presentation, that would be greatly appreciated because I just took some notes. And going back to the part where you were talking about the savings, whatever the total number was over a 20-year period, isn't that less than $1 million a year savings after 20 years? So the amount,
The last box on the right.
18 million is cumulative cash flow over 20 years. So isn't that less than $1 million a year that would be to the good, so to speak, or a savings?
Just
Or are we talking about two different things? So I'd like clarification on that. And my other question is, when do the savings start? Do they start right away, or is it after 20 years you have the savings?
My reference to the 1.6 million, and actually their slide had it up there, they've updated that now. They even used the figure of $2 million a year. But the $1.6 million is from day one after we purchased the fixtures and the equipment from National Grid. From day one, our cost of electricity will go from 3 million it is a year down to a number much less than that. Because once we own the lights, again, 75 to 80% of the bill we pay National Grid now is for system maintenance and facilities. 20 or 25% is electricity. We'll still continue to have to pay the 25 or the 20% for the electricity, but the facilities will now be ours. Also, with the responsibility, we'll have to maintain the facilities. So there's money in the project to maintain the facilities after we own them, but we immediately get the savings soon as we purchase the lights from National Grid.
But so how does that reconcile with the number they have there, 18 million cumulative cash flow over 20 years?
The cumulative cash flow is the
Is that
sum
something different?
of the top.
Or,
So it's after debt service, after maintenance, after all the costs associated with the project.
okay.
So that's the total savings less the blue. So it's the sum of all this green
Savings
on the top.
minus the costs.
Correct.
General savings minus
Correct.
costs equal the net savings, so to speak.
Correct. That's,
So
yes,
the net savings.
net
But so
cumulative.
it would be less than $1 million a year. Over
Correct.
20 years, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't be 1.6, or would it?
I-
I'm just asking the
Just
question.
maybe to make it the way I would understand it, the $1.6 million would be the savings if we didn't replace any lights. We just bought them, took them over, and had to maintain them. Left them just the way they are. You lose some of that savings when you invest in new facilities and LED lights. And that's where the difference is. The cost, $9 to $10 million for a project to replace all the existing lights with LED lights. And that $10 million has to be factored in, which isn't factored in that 1.6 million. Is that kind of clear what the
Okay,
difference is?
so I should go by this 18 million cumulative cash flow over 20 years. That's the number that I should, but ultimately would be
that's
what
the
we
net.
would
That's the net,
ultimately save as the totality of doing this whole thing.
right. It's the
Right.
savings annually less all of the expenses spread out over time.
Yeah.
And the sum of those over 20 years.
And we would start getting the savings day
Immediately.
one after purchase of
As soon as
fixtures.
we get a signed agreement, well, has to go through Public Service Commission. As soon as that's all finished, and we take over ownership of the lights, the electric bills will go down by 1.6 or even $2 million a year instantly. Just to put another thought in your mind, we're also losing that much money now every day that we don't do this. The savings is there now. If we bought all the fixtures and didn't put the new lights in for 3 or 4 years, we'd still be getting that savings.
All right, so Councilmember Lavin, I think, had a question as well.
So I have two questions. You said the failure rate's less than 1% for LED? And then if it breaks, there's some kind of mechanism to alert us that it's faltering? And then it's less than 1%, and that's over a 20-year period so for 20 years, 99% of those lights are going to work.
Yep. According to the studies by the U.S. Department of Energy and the City of Los Angeles, where they're early adopters of LED technology, over the equipment life, the failure rate was less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And if a fixture fails within the 10-year warranty period, then they replace it.
Okay. Is that what you're going to say?
Right, and that's over a lifespan of 25 years. The average LED lasts for 25 years. And unlike regular street lights, when LEDs go out, that 1% isn't it breaking and going out completely. It slowly goes down. So it's not like at 25 years, you're going to have to replace them all. It's a very gradual process of getting dimmer with time. And as Keith said, they do have that 10-year warranty as well.
So to piggyback a little bit on Councilmember Buckeye,
Yes.
so 18 million is for a 20-year, but in reality, we could be talking about 25
Exactly.
years.
Yes. So if you would pretend there's 5 extra years on there, you will have no more blue because that's your financing that you'll have to have. But the green bars or the savings will continue to go up as energy escalation rates will go up.
I see.
So those 5 years are just complete savings.
So my last question then is this. When I took a town board position January 7th of 2018, I think by the 8th or 9th, my neighbor was inquiring about lights in our neighborhood. And we've been talking every so often during trash day and whatnot. So I just need to tell him an accurate time frame of when when we can get lights. And I'm not just saying for my community, right? But for other residents who have this concern, when can I tell them we will work on their light project?
Well, we can tell you that we told them your neighborhood was first, you're the pilot. We made that very clear.
Okay.
And then there are apparently others in the queue that have made requests for lighting districts. So we were going to take care of that, but I'll let him give you a ballpark answer. But I wanted you to know
Great.
we made it clear you were first.
And I made him carry petitions like every other community would want to do it, but I need to tell him when.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is a long process. Compared to other capital projects, this has to follow the Public Service Commission process. And right now, the tariffs allow the utilities 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 180-day windows, depending on the milestone, to prepare the information to the PSC. What we're finding, especially with National Grid, is they're waiting to the very end of their grace period. So if they have 90 days to send something to the PSC, it's going at like day 85. And unfortunately, that's the case. So to answer your question, our CA audit is complete and draft. We have an upcoming meeting later this week with the project team here at the town to review that. We'll have more information, as we said, financially for upcoming milestones and design, et cetera. The finalization of that CEA is, probably just a few months after that. To start the design phase, where we go out and do a GIS audit, the design, photometric design, maybe a pilot program to look at light fixtures, that's typically a 6-month process. The Public Service Commission process is a good year. And that can start as soon as the town wishes to begin that negotiation when they sign the purchase agreements with National Grid. Signing it, by the way, does not commit you to buy it. It just engages them into the next step. It's called a purchase agreement with an inventory, which we already have and we're reviewing. We're going to be reviewing that and comparing it to the GIS audit, and a pole attachment agreement. So that's a good year. That whole utility segment is a good year.
Now, just to point out one thing for you, though. We're talking about all existing fixtures that we own. Where you're talking about is your neighborhood where you have no fixtures. That's almost the same as Niagara Falls Boulevard, where the town went out, bought lights, fixtures, put them on Niagara Falls Boulevard. The only thing you have to go to National Grid for is to get a rate for the electricity used, and they would be all privately or town-owned fixtures. So the process only needs the design work done.
So for
For any-
places getting new lights, it'll be a,
That's a host. That's
My
not-
apologies.
That's a whole.
My-
That's
my
a whole
answer-
separate issue.
My
He's-
answer
he's a
was assuming the
non-existing
buyback and
neighborhood.
retrofit, yeah.
Yeah, they don't have any lights in their neighborhood now.
So that's why your neighborhood was going to be the pilot. I also want to point out something that we haven't talked about at all. Besides the financial savings, there's a huge benefit for the environment, and this is a big part of why we're looking at it as well. So I wanted to make sure people are fully aware of that. It's also one of the things that the state looks at for the clean energy communities and some of the other projects.
So the last thing I'm going to leave you with, Mike, is National Grid is now starting to talk to other communities about not buying back the poles, just having Grid modify the
That's
lightheads.
their first step. If just to bring it back to the national NICEAG agreement, they came to us to say we want to switch all those lights on Transit Road to LEDs. Here's a price. NICEAG was giving us that price, and we just had to agree to it. They would have done it, but we don't want them to convert those lights. We said we want to buy them back. And the agreement you're talking about at tonight's board meeting is that we agree to keep everything confidential as far as the transaction, and they will then give us a price to buy those lights back.
So I guess my question ultimately is, instead of having, so let's take NICEAG with the 51 lights. If NICEAG said we'll replace LED heads, we're still recognizing an energy savings.
There's not the energy savings you could think, because street lights are not metered.
Okay.
They're based on a tariff. And the way the tariff structure is, if you save energy, you do save energy, but you don't save money because the tariff doesn't change.
That's what I needed to know. Okay.
And the other thing that's in there is that, let's say 75% maintenance cost.
Okay.
We would still be paying that. If they put the lights up, we'd still owe it, so.
I just wanted to make sure that we had an answer, because inevitably I don't want that question to pop up.
As you recall,
Ultimately, you only save this piece of the pie.
Yeah, I understand.
And you might recall on the proposal they gave to you, after we had already told them from National Grid that we weren't going that way, they wanted to charge us for the lights they were taking down for the rest of what they considered their value. So it was going to cost even more money to not own them.
They were right, because you were dispose of quote unquote good lights with life, so we were going to get a
Demolition fees.
right. Now let me ask this: I understand that we're no longer buying out the value of existing lights. However, getting rid of high pressure sodium lights, what is the process involved in that?
That would be part of the contract. The contractor would be, in the whole conversion, the contractor would have it in his contract to properly dispose of all the materials that they take down.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming in, for giving us so much time, and for taking a lot of questions. I think it's important to have the board involved. Councilwoman Jackie Berger and Mike Delamere have done a great job for the town, spearheading this, getting this process to this point. So we'll look forward to hearing more from you as we go through the process.
Thank you for having us.
Supervisor, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm Dave Morano, the assessor. Part of our assessment process, we get a value from New York State of the value of utility properties in what we call Rural Section 5 Special Franchise. It's currently $147 million of assessed valuation that obviously National Grid and NICEAG are a part of. When we buy that property back, that value would result in lost assessment, correct?
That's correct.
And has that loss of revenue, because it's not just losing for the town, you're also the school districts and the county, has that been factored into the cost savings you put up there?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks.